we are going to be discussing a game that's quite topical at this moment because of the premiere film release called Past Pawn. Pawn Sacrifice, not Past Pawn, Pawn Sacrifice, pardon me. I went into the movie with trepidation because I was very, very fearful that Hollywood would portray Bobby as an idiot savant, obsessed with chess, but has no other redeeming social virtues or values. You know, the type of person couldn't tie a shoe and this kinds of things. Well, fortunately, that wasn't the case. It was a great storyline. Of course, Bobby Fischer has a very, very compelling story, and it was really, really well acted by the Tobey Maguire, who played the lead role, of course. And I can't remember the Boris Spassky figure, but I thought that they did a really good job. However, so on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a 7. I really would. However, and this is really, 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 really irksome, the producer, directors, people had come out and said, you know, like, we hired a chess person to be as authentic to true life as possible, to, you know, to keep the facts straight and so forth and so on. And yet they didn't. They took dramatic license, if you will. There was one scene in the movie from this game, Game 1, and if you ask a lot of people about Bobby Fischer, they may not know too much about him, but it seems like everybody remembers Bishop takes H2. And I remember watching the ABC Wide World of Sports show. It's a small clip where, first of all, everybody wanted to know, was Bobby Fischer going to play? Would he make it to Iceland and all of these things? And he missed the opening ceremony. The game had started and there was still no Bobby Fischer. And then finally he came, I'm going to say 10 minutes late. His clock had been started. And he sat down, he shook hands, he filled out a score sheet, and then he very carefully arranged all of his pieces. And then he reached for his knight on G8 and somehow in midair adjusted it so that the knight's head was turning to the left, and he set it down comfortably on the F6 square. He had these very, very large hands, and it was almost a kind of a ballet that he did with his pieces, and that was his first move, knight F6, and yay, the match was underway. When you think about their rivalry before the World Championship, Boris had a huge edge. They had played 5 tournament games. Boris won 3, 2 draws. Boris had never, ever lost to Bobby Fischer. Bobby had this great run through the interzonals and the candidates, and he came as the overwhelming ratings favorite, and they played Game 1. In the movie, when Bobby makes the fateful decision of capturing the pawn on H2, the character Boris Spassky in the movies makes his move G3, says, Robert James, you don't look so well, and then Tobey Maguire resigns. That didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. Let's see, in truth, what did happen. First of all, Boris had opened with the queen pawn. Boris was one of the first world champions who, besides being a really fantastic human being, by the way, he was a universal player. He could play both D4 and E4. Prior to Boris Spassky, you had players like Michael Botvinnik, Emanuel Lasker, Capablanca, who were much more narrow in their opening repertoire and preferring one E4 or one D4 more or less exclusively. And I really thought of Boris Spassky as the first really universal world champion. Today we have Magnus Carlsen, who's absolutely amazing. He literally plays so many openings as white, so many defenses as black, it's remarkable that he can score so well in openings that he may not have as deep a knowledge as others do. Knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, d5, knight c3, bishop b4. The Veresov. Today, I must say that this line has actually become increasingly popular, this defense, bishop b4. E3 was Boris Spassky's choice. Today, the sharpest variations are considered bishop g5, d takes c4, e4. A lot of games in this Vienna, and also as well, pardon me, bishop g5, pardon me, h6, bishop h4, g5, bishop here, knight e4, with the idea of playing c5 and queen a5. A lot of very sharp modern day lines. Spassky reverts to the tried and true Rubinstein, Nimzo-Indian defense, if you will, and played the move e3, castles, bishop d3, c5, castles, knight c6. So today, I would say, my goodness, 1,000 games have been played, not even from this starting position. There's a lot of other, there's a long line of theory for this entire variation, and top grandmasters are willing to play either side, black or white, of this opening. A2, A3, and bishop A5. Today, that move is not considered as popular as bishop takes c3, b takes c3, takes on c4, takes on c4, b6, as well as queen c7. In this variation, a lot of times, black is aspiring to play the move e5 in order to bring out his bishop on its natural diagonal. That was not Bobby's choice. Bobby played after a3, bishop a5. So here is actually a crucial moment for Boris, and Boris played in the game knight e2. And I think after knight e2, black is basically just fine. I think the crucial line of play is c takes d5, e takes d5, takes on c5. Because of the threat now of b4, simply winning a pawn, black is obliged to go for bishop takes c3, b takes c3, bishop g4, and he's going to try to round up this pawn one day with a move like queen a5. But it's not going to be that easy. And after c4, you can see that what white wants to do is put this bishop on this diagonal, and I consider white's position favorable. Yeah? None of that happened as Boris played the move knight e2. And now after takes, and bishop back, soon it starts to look like a queen's gambit accepted, where the queens come off the board. So just around these parts, people were already, if you will, chalking the game up as a draw, because the pawn structures, 4 versus 4, 2 versus 2, white at this exact moment only has a small lead in development and a little bit freer pieces, but all of the, let us say, business squares on the d8, the d file, pardon me, are protected. So draw was predicted. Bishop b2, bishop d7, small tactic. Black cannot play bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, and pick up a piece because oopsie daisy, the rook on a1 is hanging. So rook ac1, rook f8 d8, knight d4. So now again, we're seeing more of the wood coming off. The game is getting increasingly balanced. Now we were expecting that who would be the first to blink, so to speak, who would be the first to offer a draw. As we can see, the position's incredibly tame. Equal, equal, equal. You can't point to any single sector of the board and say either side has an edge. Both sides begin to bring their king into play, and knight e4. Bobby actually makes the first concrete threat in the game with the move rook c2 check being threatened. Rook c1 offering a trade of rooks. The rooks were traded, and f6, knight a5, knight d6. King up, bishop back, get rid of that knight. Bishop up, takes, takes, and b5. And here we have it, probably the single most famous moment in World Championship match history, as so many Americans who just have a little interest in chess are aware of this fateful decision. Now, in the movie, they really show this moment as one of great perturbance for Bobby or Toby Maguire, that Bobby was being affected by the cameras on the stage. So you think of those old movies, you go to a movie and you hear that rolling film tape. So Bobby complained to the arbiter that his concentration was being disturbed by the film cameras, and could they do something to moderate the noise, and Lothar Schmidt promised to do that. But in the movie it was sort of like, you know, after the complaint he comes back and, you know, impulsively captures the pawn. No, that what happened was he had actually sat down at the board, and Boris was at the board, and Bobby popped out with this move, bishop takes h2, and Boris literally, you know, jumped back in a seat. From a seating position, he was, you know, visibly shocked by this. In the movie, they have Boris coming back from a walk, sitting down, and then asking Bobby if he looked unwell after g3. Boris never said anything of the sort to Bobby. So it's very, very clear and obvious that the bishop is trapped on h2, and that thanks to these two pawns, White's king is simply going to walk over here and capture the bishop. Bobby, of course, had seen that, and he immediately played h5 with a very obvious intention of playing h4. G takes h4 and being able to retreat his bishop back. He certainly saw the move king e2, h4, king f3, and now what Bobby's mentally had in mind, what his intended line of play was to play the move h3, so that this prevents White from playing the move king g2, trapping the bishop. If it's black to move, black would be winning with the move bishop g1, followed by h2, and then the bishop can never be captured, and the king would be stuck protecting a pawn from promotion. So h3, king here, bishop here, king takes, bishop takes, was Bobby's main line. And he thought, okay, well now my bishop is getting ready to escape and blah, blah, blah. And of course the move he missed was bishop d2. Oops. And the next move is king g2 and king takes bishop and so on. Okay. So when Boris played g3, h5, king e2, Bobby now had an epiphany, an awakening. He realized, oh dear, his intended variation falls to bishop to d2. king e7, king g2, takes, 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 takes. King here, king to d6, a4, and now king to d5, bishop a3. Oh, hold on just a second. I'm putting it on training, but yeah, okay. a4, king to d5, bishop to a3, and now this is the crucial moment right here. So Bobby, everybody remembers that Bobby lost the game by getting his bishop trapped. The remarkable thing is that he could have still saved the position. That this is where his actual blunder in the game was. He played the move king e4, double question mark, losing. Okay? He wasn't in time trouble or anything like that. That was move 37. Clearly what black wants to do is trade these 3 pawns for that 1 pawn. He wants to trade this pawn for that pawn, and then he wants to go king here and round up the pawn. Jillian. Yeah, well that would be great as well, just to get the wrong color rook pawn. So here Bobby had the clear drawing line, and it went a6. Okay, there is a lot of false leads. One false lead that's very attractive is to go king c4. Why not? Why not just go here and pick up all of these pawns? But this one would actually lose. And this bishop basically does a good enough job at stopping these pawns that you're in time to eat this, and white ends up winning. By the way, analysis by Jan Timman, the guy who we saw earlier today. Okay, so king here, bishop here. So the correct drawing line is to play a6. Okay. Now, this is white's best chance of winning, was to play b6, king here, a5, king back. And I think it was here, this was the idea that Bobby had missed. If you take all of these pawns here off the board, and it's just these 4 pawns, you stick the king on a8, it's a fortress, thanks to stalemate. So you wanted to lure white's pawns to b6 and a5 and get that fortress. So your idea very much is to play f5, pardon me, g6, e5, and f4. And to make sure you trade, and then just scurry back with your king. Let's see, how did it go? That didn't happen, so this happened in the game. So king came to d5, and then this very bad move, king e4. Grandmaster Ludek Pachman, by the way, very, very interesting man from Czechoslovakia. He was a wonderful agitator. So in those days of Czechoslovakia, you were almost required to read Marxist doctrine. And unfortunately for the authorities, Ludek had a photographic memory. And when you got all of these Soviet era kind of manuals about social culture, norms, economy, and things like that, many of them were contradictory. Something that you would find in volume 1 went against something you would find in volume 3. So he would go to all of these political rallies, and the guy would be up there shouting about the socialist paradise and everything like this. And then Ludek would say, yes, but on page 16 on volume 7, you have said this and this and this and this, which contradicts everything you've just said. And the guy would turn red-faced and Ludic get arrested. And this was a constant in his life, by the way. And it was very, very, very funny. He wrote a book, Checkmate in Prague, about his experiences in prisons. Extensive understanding of the prison system of Czechoslovakia. King e4, bishop c5, a6, b6, f5, king came to g5, and now f4. I think this is e takes f4, king takes f4, king h, I think, hold on, I believe it was Boris Spassky who sealed his move, e5 takes f4. I'll just have to check the historical. So they're adjourned. And Bobby's going back to the home that he lived. Okay, the match took place in Reykjavik, the capital city and largest city in Iceland, but he didn't stay in the city proper. He had his own home, so he would be away from the media and the press, and he could prepare. So he had a bodyguard driver, a man from the Icelandic police force, Sammy, who he became very close friends with, who was driving, and Bill Lombardi in the car. And Bobby is, moaning, oh, why did I play bishop h2? Why did I play bishop h2? And Bill explains to him that that wasn't the losing move. Ooh, Bobby is like, what? And he showed Bobby, he had those Argentine chess sets. He showed Bobby how he could have made a draw. And Bobby's like, I'm such an idiot, I'm such an idiot, And that would have been great for the whole dramatic effect of the movie, the real version, as opposed to what they actually did. So e takes f4, king takes f4. I think this was obviously the sealed move. King came to h5, and the whole problem is that black is going to get out-tempoed, and eventually white's king is just going to pick up all the pawns. So you can see how far Bobby played it out. Okay, so up to this moment, because I was just a kid, of course, is I thought that Bobby still had chances to draw. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, all you got to do is push that pawn, make a queen. The bishop has to come back. You sacrifice the pawn, you take the pawn. I thought that Bobby was going to make a draw. Unfortunately, just about the time that I thought it was a draw, Bobby resigned. Like, dope. Okay. So the problem, of course, is white's king gets to c7, protects the pawn. Black's king will have to retreat to a6. So, for example, the final moves of the game might be something like here, 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 here. And now you have to give up this b7 pawn in its draw. If you take this king and flip it to the a8 square, it's a draw. It's amazing. So let's just see if what I say is true. Let's just see that. I just have to do this for purposes. Okay. So now you can see that the king here, there's no way that white's king can approach these two squares. King here, it's stalemate. And this would have been a draw. We were trying at the chess coffee shop that I frequented in Seattle, the last exit. We would go over the reports, right, the newspaper, and we were trying in the adjournment to get to such a position. And we thought that Bobby could save it, but it was lost at the adjournment. Any questions? Any questions? I'll just tell you a few things. Bobby Fischer, of course, in 1972 was arguably the biggest celebrity in the world. Muhammad Ali hadn't yet really become Muhammad Ali. He was very, very well known, of course, but Bobby was like known throughout the world. And we expected that Bobby had said that all he ever wanted to do was play chess, and that when he became the world champion, he would be an active world champion. So we had all expected Bobby to kind of lead a parade of new era in chess. And I had a very dear friend, his name was Emmett Watson. Mr. Emmett was kind of this curmudgeonly old journalist from Seattle who had created a society for lesser Seattle. So he wanted everybody to move away from Seattle. So he had gotten t-shirts, "In Seattle we don't tan, we rust." You know, like, leave Seattle, go away from Seattle. And Emmett called me up and said, "Yes, come on down for dinner." And I go, "Where are we meeting?" Blah, blah, blah. So I go to the Olympic Hotel in downtown Seattle, and much to my surprise, we went into a restaurant where this whole room was reserved for this amazing table of 40 persons. And I said to Emmett, like, "Gee, I thought we were having dinner." And he said, "We are, sit down." So all of these gentlemen, none of whom I had ever met in my life, we began to have, you know, 3-course, 4-course, 5-course dinner. And at the very end, guy taps his glass and he says, "Well, welcome again, everybody, to Sports Illustrated annual get-together with all of the heads of all of the offices of Sports Illustrated from all over the world." And he turns to me and he says, "Yaz, you know, like, whatever happened to Bobby Fischer?" And I mumbled some apology and non-answer. And he said, "Well, the reason is in 1973, we had a dinner just like this, what we're holding now, and all of our editors from around the world were trying to understand how we were going to explain to our subscribers that the sports superstars of today were chess grandmasters. And we didn't want to lose our readership by equating chess as a sport, but we expected, you know, $1,000,000 events, $1,000,000 tournaments. So whatever happened to Bobby Fischer?" And I went, you know, like, you know, it would have been great. And I can tell you that on many occasions, there was like almost this incredibly powerful hope that Bobby would play for our Olympic team. How cool that would be, that he would come back and play on our Olympic team, or visit a US championship, or visit a tournament. And there was Bobby sightings everywhere. Like, everybody said, "Oh, I saw Bobby at the Pasadena Public Library," or Bobby visited. I remember Bobby Fischer in like 1974 visited was it 74 or 73? I'm not sure. Visited the American Open, and literally you cannot get the chess players to leave their boards while their clock is ticking, even on a 4-alarm fire. You know, like, they're still thinking, "I gotta save my bishop," you know, I gotta do something. But literally the whole tournament hall emptied out because the rumor was Bobby Fischer was there, and everybody wanted to go and get a picture with Bobby. I'll tell you one last story of Bobby that I really thought was fantastic. It was 1980, and the gentleman's name was Arnfried Pagel. Arnfried Pagel was a German industrialist who had made a fortune in cement. And he decided that he wanted to sponsor a chess club in Holland called the Koningsclub, the King's Club. and he wanted it to be the champion of Holland. So he got it in his mind that he wanted Bobby Fischer as an honored member of the Königs Club. So he called up Claudia, the secretary of Bobby Fischer, and said, "Can I arrange a meeting with Bobby Fischer?" "Yes, you can, but there's a $5,000 fee for meeting with Bobby Fischer." "No problem," said Arnfrid, and he came to Pasadena. And they met in a restaurant, and Arnfrid said, "Well, this is my business. I would like to invite you to come to Holland and play for my club, one game. I'll pay you $100,000 cash. You play one game. It's first class treatment all the way. Hotel, travel, food, everything. You stay a night or two as you wish. You travel back." At that moment, the Königs Club, it's sort of like there's the master class, then there's an experts class, and then there's other classes. The Königs Club was literally on level 1. Okay, so Bobby said, "Who will be my opponent?" And Arnfrid said, "Well, I'm not sure, but I suspect the player will be about 1,200. Okay, so Bobby, this is really a very, very weak amateur player. And Bobby, "Oh, this is really great. This is very good, good. Let me think about it. Let's meet again tomorrow at the specific place in this park in Pasadena." So Arnfrid said, "Fine." So they meet in the specific place in the park. They take these long walks. They have this wonderful dinner. And Bobby keeps asking him questions that Arnfrid just wasn't prepared for. For example, will there be a gate? A gate? Tickets for sale for the spectators. No, it's just the clubs get together. There's one meeting, the clubs, and there's no gate. It's free. Okay. Will there be videotaping? Videotaping? No. I hope the TV will come for 1 or 2, 3 minutes that will be on the nightly news, but no, we're not videotaping now. Okay. Will there be any posters? Posters? What do you mean? What's a poster? Well, you take my picture, you put it up on the wall, you sell the poster for $20. No, you're just coming to play a game. And this goes on and on and on. So 2 days pass, and Bobby keeps asking these questions that just aren't here's the money. Would you please come to my club and play? And it comes into Arnfrid's mind that Bobby, for whatever reason, is going to say no. Like, this is just an easy layup. Come and play an exhibition game, go home. And I can use your name that Bobby Fischer is a member of the Königs Chess Club. And Arnfrid realizes that, my God, if he goes home tomorrow back to Amsterdam, he's going to have no proof that he ever even met with Bobby Fischer. Bobby's going to say no, and that's it. So he decides to hire a private investigator to take a photo of the two of them together from afar, okay? So that at least he'll have proof that he can show his family, I met Bobby Fischer. So the third day, he was going to meet Bobby in the park in Pasadena at the specific place at noon. And Arnfrid's there, but there's no Bobby. Bobby was actually quite punctual in such meetings, and this was very surprising for Arnfrid. Arnfrid's in a suit and tie, looking very proper, sits on the bench. 10, 15 minutes goes by, still no Bobby Fischer. Now he's getting worried that maybe he's in the wrong part of the park. Pretty sure he's got it right, but he's still concerned. When suddenly there's a psst, and he looks around, and behind the trees, Bobby Fischer's hiding behind it. Bobby, what are you doing in there? Come on out. No, you come on in. So Arnfrid comes in, like under the bushes, and what's going on? Bobby says, there's a man. He's following me. And it suddenly occurs to Arnfrid that in truth, Bobby had spotted the guy who was trying to take his picture, and it scared him to death that he was being followed. There are many, many, many wonderful stories of Bobby. One more that I desperately do like to share.
Did he ever make it to the club?
No, he declined $100,000. This one I really, really liked a lot. So in the days of the GMA, 1987, 88, 89, Bobby Fischer was very interested in what the Grandmasters Union was trying to do, and he had contacted Mr. Bessel-Koch, the chairman of the GMA, and said, could he come to Brussels and blah, blah, blah. So Bessel brought Bobby over, and Bobby didn't want to stay at the hotel because he was afraid he'd be recognized, right? You know, like those bad media people would see him. And of course, since Brussels was the head of NATO, you know, you got media up the yin-yang. He wanted to stay in Bessel's home, private home, and Bessel's fine. But Bobby didn't want to go anywhere. Bobby didn't want to go to restaurants for dinner, like, let's order the food and bring the food here. So Bobby was really, really secluded in Bessel's home. And it's getting more and more and more frustrating for Bessel because he really wants to show him the beauty of Brussels and Belgium. Bobby's refusing. So a week goes by, and then totally unexpected, Bobby says, let's go to a bar. What, says Bessel? I mean, like, sure, any kind of bar? Yeah, a bar where there's lots of girls, or lots of women. Well, said Bessel, I happen to know one or two. Let's go to this bar. So they go to a bar, and instantly two women come over and ask them if they want company and would they buy them a glass of champagne, and Bessel's happy to do this. So Bessel's got his back to Bobby, and Bessel's talking to the woman, but he's really hearing Bobby's conversation back here. And the conversation goes something like, and so, what do you do for a living? And Bobby says, I am the world chess champion. And the lady says, okay, come on, seriously? Yesterday it was Dolly, today I got the world chess champion? If you're the world chess champion, what's your name? And he goes, Robert James Fischer. I'm known as Bobby Fischer. The woman says, I know that name. I know who you are. I still don't believe you're Bobby Fischer. Show me proof. Bobby had spent the last 10, 15 years hiding his identity. Now he's in a situation where he wants to prove that he really is the world chess champion, and he has nothing, no driver's license, nothing that says Bobby Fischer world chess, and no business card or anything like this. So Bessel by this time has turned around and is vouching for him. Yeah, he's really who he says he is. The girls look at one another, they look at the two gentlemen and say, okay, we believe you. Just buy us another glass of champagne. that was the wonderful, frustrating story of Bobby Fischer. For years denying who he was, the moment he wanted, proper vindication, validation of who he was, he didn't have it. I just thought that was a hilarious mix. Anyway, I recommend the movie. It's a good movie. See it. Pawn Sacrifice. Just like me, try your best to overlook the historical inaccuracies, and you'll have a good time. Thank you.